day pride met reality, the great assembly hall of Valdorian Prime stretched across several kilometers, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of 3 suns. Representatives from 800 different species filled the tiered seating, each delegation carefully positioned according to their species rank in the galactic hierarchy. The air hummed with the gentle vibration of universal translators working to convert thousands of different languages into coherent meaning. At the center of this magnificent structure stood Supreme Chancellor Vexter, his imposing form casting long shadows across the polished floor. The Valdorian leader stood nearly 3 meters tall, his silver-scaled skin gleaming under the chamber's lights. 4 arms moved in calculated gestures as he spoke, each movement designed to display the absolute authority that had kept the galaxy in line for 3,000 years. The Valdorian Alliance had ruled through a simple principle: overwhelming superiority backed by the willingness to use it. They had ended the age of chaos, when hundreds of species fought endless wars that nearly destroyed galactic civilization. Under Valdorian rule, trade flourished, wars ceased, and billions of beings lived in relative peace. The price was simple: submission to Valdorian authority and acceptance of their place in the cosmic order. Captain Alina Rodriguez sat in the human delegation section, her dark eyes studying the alien assembly with the calm attention of a veteran strategist. She was a woman in her 40s, with graying hair pulled back in a simple style and wearing the plain blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Next to her, Dr. Sarah Chen made quiet notes on a simple tablet, while Admiral Thomas Kane sat with the relaxed posture of someone completely at ease, despite being surrounded by potential enemies. The human delegation looked remarkably ordinary compared to the exotic aliens filling the chamber. No advanced technology, no threatening weapons, no impressive displays of power. They appeared to be exactly what the galaxy assumed they were: a young species that had recently discovered faster-than-light travel and was now learning about the larger universe. Supreme Chancellor Vextar's voice resonated through the chamber as he began his proclamation. The Valdorian Alliance had been patient with humanity's expansion over the past 50 years. They had watched as humans established colonies without permission, formed trade agreements without paying proper tribute, and treated other species as equals rather than acknowledging Valdorian supremacy. This tolerance had been a gift, but that gift was now being withdrawn. The terms were simple and non-negotiable. Humanity would immediately cease all unauthorized expansion. They would dismantle their growing fleet and limit their population to current levels. All human colonies would pay tribute to the Valdorian Alliance, and humanity would formally acknowledge Valdorian authority over all galactic affairs. They had 72 hours to comply. The alternative was equally simple: complete annihilation. The chamber fell silent as thousands of alien eyes turned toward the small human delegation. Many species remembered their own first encounter with Valdorian ultimatums. The wise ones had submitted immediately and lived to prosper under Valdorian protection. The proud ones had resisted and been crushed so thoroughly that some species still hadn't recovered their pre-war populations centuries later. A few had been wiped out entirely as examples to others. Captain Rodriguez stood slowly, her movement unhurried and confident. When she spoke, her voice was clear and steady, carrying easily through the vast chamber without any hint of fear or desperation. She thanked Supreme Chancellor Vextar for his generous offer, but explained that humanity would respectfully decline. The words were delivered with the same tone one might use to politely turn down an invitation to dinner. There was no anger, No defiance, no pleading for mercy. Just a simple, calm refusal that seemed completely at odds with the magnitude of what was being rejected. The silence that followed stretched on for long moments. Alien delegates stared at the human captain in shock and disbelief. Some felt pity for a species that was about to commit suicide through pride. Others wondered what kind of beings would calmly walk toward their own destruction. A few experienced a strange admiration for courage that bordered on madness. Supreme Chancellor Vextar himself seemed stunned by the response. In 3 millennia of expansion and conquest, no species had ever simply said no to Valdorian demands with such casual confidence. His silver scales darkened with rising anger as he demanded to know if the humans understood what they were refusing. Did they comprehend the power they were challenging? Had they studied what happened to the Corinthian Empire when they defied Valdorian authority? Captain Rodriguez listened to the angry questions with the same calm expression she had maintained. Throughout the encounter, when the Chancellor finished his tirade, she did something that surprised everyone in the chamber. She smiled, not a nervous grin or a desperate attempt at humor, but a genuine smile of someone who possessed knowledge that others lacked. Dr. Chen closed her tablet and gathered her notes with unhurried efficiency. Admiral Kane checked his communication device for messages from their ships orbiting the station. All 3 humans moved with the relaxed demeanor of people concluding a routine business meeting. They showed no signs of fear, uncertainty, or desperation about what would happen next. The human delegation began walking toward the chamber's exit, while thousands of beings watched in fascination and horror. Some species sent mental prayers to their deities, asking for mercy on the doomed humans. Others began calculating how quickly they could distance themselves from humanity before the inevitable retaliation began. A few wondered if they were witnessing incredible bravery or spectacular stupidity. Supreme Chancellor Vextar found his voice again and called after the departing humans. This was their final warning. They had 72 hours to reconsider their position. After that deadline passed, the full might of the Valdorian Alliance would be brought to bear against every human world. Their species would learn the same harsh lesson that had been taught to countless others throughout galactic history. Captain Rodriguez paused at the chamber entrance and turned back toward the Valdorian leader. Her smile had not faded, and when she spoke, her voice carried clearly through the massive room. She told the Chancellor that humanity appreciated the warning and assured him that they would be ready. The 3 humans left the chamber, and the great doors sealed behind them with a sound like distant thunder. The remaining delegates sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Had they seen the last brave stand of a doomed species, or had they watched something else entirely? Supreme Chancellor Vextar stared at the empty doorway where the humans had disappeared. In 3,000 years of conquest, he had never encountered anything like this response. Every other species had eventually shown fear when faced with Valdorian power. Some had hidden it better than others, but it was always there, in their voices, their posture, their desperate attempts to negotiate. The humans had shown nothing but calm confidence, as if they knew something that the rest of the galaxy did not. Word of the failed negotiations spread through the galaxy's communication networks within hours. Intelligence services on hundreds of worlds began preparing reports for their governments. The consensus was unanimous. Humanity had perhaps 1 week before their civilization was completely erased from existence. On Earth, President Maria Santos walked through the corridors of the Global Assembly building toward the main chamber where representatives from every human world waited for her address. The weight of her species' future rested on her shoulders, but her steps were steady and confident. She had spent the last 72 hours in meetings with military leaders and scientists, reviewing plans that most humans never knew existed. The assembly hall fell silent as she took the podium. Billions of people across human space watched the broadcast, knowing that these might be among the last words their elected leader ever spoke. Children stopped playing in streets and parks. Workers paused at their stations. Soldiers checked their weapons and wondered if they would live to see another dawn. President Santos began by acknowledging the gravity of their situation. The Valdorian Alliance had given humanity an ultimatum: submit or face total annihilation. Military analysts confirmed that the alien fleets possessed overwhelming superiority in numbers, technology, and combat experience. By every logical calculation, humanity was about to be wiped from existence. She paused and looked directly into the cameras that carried her image. Across human civilization, her next words would either inspire her people to fight impossible odds, or comfort them in their final hours. When she spoke again, her voice carried a strength that seemed to come from some deep well of hidden knowledge. Asterisk. The president told her people that today they faced their greatest challenge as a species. An alliance that had ruled the galaxy for 3 millennia had declared war on them. The aliens believed humans were primitive and defenseless, easy prey for their advanced war machine. They thought humanity would collapse at the first show of overwhelming force. Then she smiled, and that smile carried the same mysterious confidence that Captain Rodriguez had shown in the council chamber. She told the watching billions that the Valdorians were about to learn why human history was filled with stories of impossible victories against overwhelming odds. They would discover what humanity was truly capable of when pushed to the breaking point. Most importantly, they would find out why Earth's greatest strength had always been its greatest weakness turned inside out. Across human space, something began to stir. Military installations that had been quiet for decades suddenly came alive with activity. Deep underground facilities powered up systems that had been dormant for generations. On remote stations, personnel who had thought they were researchers or miners revealed their true purpose as they activated equipment that had been disguised as civilian infrastructure. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's apparent weakness had been their greatest deception. Asterisk. What sleeping giants do when they wake. Admiral Kethva commanded the Valdorian 7th Conquest fleet from the bridge of his flagship, the Infinite Dominion. The massive vessel stretched for 12 kilometers, its hull bristling with weapons that could reduce planets to molten slag. Around him, 300 warships of various classes moved through hyperspace in perfect formation, their combined firepower capable of sterilizing entire star systems. The Admiral studied tactical displays, showing the deployment of Valdorian forces across human space. 15 separate fleets were converging on every major human colony simultaneously. Intelligence reports indicated that humanity possessed perhaps 200 combat vessels, most of them converted merchant ships with improvised weapons. The coming battle would be less a war than an extermination. Kethva had participated in 47 conquest campaigns during his long career. He had seen species fight with desperate courage, others attempt to negotiate even as their worlds burned, and a few simply surrender without resistance. What he had never encountered was the strange confidence that humans had displayed during the negotiations. It puzzled him, but he attributed it to ignorance of what they were truly facing. The hyperspace jump concluded, and the Valdorian fleet emerged into normal space at the edge of the Sol system. Immediately, sensors began cataloging human defensive positions throughout the system. What they found was exactly what intelligence had predicted: a few dozen warships of questionable capabilities scattered among the planets, along with various space stations and orbital platforms that appeared to be civilian infrastructure. Admiral HFY opened communication channels to address the human defenders. He followed standard Valdorian protocol by offering one final chance for surrender. Any human vessels that powered down their weapons and submitted to boarding would be spared. Those who chose to fight would be destroyed without mercy. The response came from a human admiral named Thomas Kane, broadcasting from a ship called the Defiant. His image appeared on the main screen, showing a man in his 60s with grey hair and calm eyes that seemed strangely familiar. Kane thanked the Valdorian admiral for his generous offer, but explained that humanity would have to decline. Again, that same inexplicable confidence. Admiral HFY ended the communication and gave orders to begin the attack. His fleet advanced toward the inner system in battle formation, weapons charging and shields at maximum power. The human ships began moving to intercept their formation, loose and seemingly unprofessional compared to Valdorian precision. The first exchange of fire came as the fleets closed to optimal weapons range. Valdorian energy beams lanced out toward human vessels with surgical precision, each shot calculated to disable rather than destroy. The admiral preferred to capture enemy ships when possible for intelligence gathering and psychological impact. But something was wrong. The human ships were moving in ways that defied their apparent technological limitations. They shifted course with impossible speed and precision, avoiding shots that should have been unavoidable. Their return fire was equally puzzling, targeting Valdorian systems with accuracy that suggested detailed knowledge of alien ship designs. More disturbing were the weapons themselves. Instead of the primitive energy guns that intelligence had predicted, human ships fired projectiles that seemed to phase in and out of normal space, bypassing shields and striking hull plating directly. Several Valdorian vessels reported critical damage from weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate their defenses. Admiral HFY demanded updated intelligence reports as his fleet engaged the surprisingly effective human defenders. What he received made no sense. Sensor readings indicated that human ships were somehow generating energy, signatures far beyond what their visible technology should allow. Some vessels appeared to be drawing power from sources that weren't there. The battle continued for 2 hours, before Admiral HFY realized he was losing. Not just failing to win quickly, but actually losing ships to an enemy that should have been obliterated in the first few minutes of combat. Human vessels were using tactics he had never encountered, weapons that violated known physics, and displaying coordination that suggested a level of strategic thinking the Valdorians had never faced. Then the real surprise began. What the Valdorians had assumed were civilian space stations suddenly revealed themselves as heavily armed fortresses, mining platforms transformed into artillery batteries. Research stations became command centers, coordinating system-wide defense networks. The entire Sol system had been turned into a fortress without anyone noticing. But the greatest shock came when Admiral Kane contacted the Valdorian fleet again. This time, his transmission was broadcast on all frequencies so that every ship in both fleets could hear his words. He explained that the Valdorians had made a fundamental error in their assessment of humanity. The admiral described how human civilization had never known true peace. For thousands of years, humans had fought wars that would have destroyed less. Resilient species, they had survived ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and countless conflicts that had forged them into something unique in the galaxy. What the Valdorians saw as primitive chaos was actually an endless training ground that had produced the most dangerous predators in known space. Humanity had spent centuries perfecting the art of war, not because they loved violence, but because they refused to become extinct. Every human who lived carried the genetic legacy of survivors who had endured impossible odds. Their technology might look primitive, but it was designed by beings who understood that pretty weapons meant nothing if they couldn't win battles. More importantly, humans had learned something that the Valdorians' 3 millennia of easy conquest had never taught them: how to fight when victory seemed impossible. Every human military doctrine was based on the assumption that they would face superior enemies with better technology and greater numbers. They had prepared for exactly this scenario. As Admiral Kane spoke, similar scenes were playing out across human space. Valdorian fleets that had expected easy victories found themselves facing enemies who fought with a combination of tactical brilliance, technological deception, and sheer bloody-minded determination that they had never encountered. Human commanders were using strategies pulled from thousands of years of warfare against seemingly impossible odds. The psychological impact on Valdorian forces was devastating. For 3,000 years, they had fought species that feared them. Humans showed no fear, only a grim satisfaction at finally facing enemies worthy of their full attention. They fought like beings who had been waiting their entire lives for a war this challenging. Admiral HFY found himself in full retreat within 6 hours of entering the Sol system. His once mighty fleet had been reduced to half strength by an enemy that should have been swept aside like space debris. Similar reports were arriving from other Valdorian commanders throughout human space. The conquest fleets were not just failing to achieve victory. They were being systematically destroyed by opponents who seemed to anticipate their every move. The turning point came when human reinforcements arrived. Ships that had been hidden throughout their space for decades suddenly appeared, revealing that humanity's true fleet was 10 times larger than intelligence had estimated. These vessels bore no resemblance to the converted merchant ships the Valdorians had expected. They were warships built from the ground up by a species that had never forgotten how to fight for survival. Supreme Chancellor Vegstar received the reports from his conquest fleets with growing disbelief and rage. In less than 24 hours, the greatest military force in galactic history had been routed by a species they had dismissed as primitive newcomers. The implications were staggering, not just for the Valdorian alliance, but for the entire galactic order they had maintained for 3 millennia. The galaxy watched in shock as news of the human victory spread through communication networks. Species that had submitted to Valdorian rule centuries ago began to wonder what might have been possible if they had fought back. Others started to question whether the Valdorian alliance was truly invincible, or if they had simply never faced an opponent that refused to be intimidated. President Santos addressed the galaxy from Earth. Her message broadcast to every inhabited world. She explained that humanity had no desire to conquer or rule over other species. They wanted only to be left alone to pursue their own destiny among the stars. However, they would defend themselves with absolute determination against any who threatened their freedom. The president made it clear that humans understood the value of peace, but they also understood that peace could only exist when backed by the strength to enforce it. They had learned from their own violent history that predators only respected superior predators. The Valdorian Alliance could choose to coexist with humanity as equals, or they could continue to face the consequences of their miscalculation. The galaxy would never be the same. The species that had maintained order through fear and intimidation had met their match in beings who had been forged by conflict and refined by adversity. Humanity had not just won a war, they had shattered the foundation of an empire built on the assumption that peace came through submission. In the months that followed, other species began to assert their independence from Valdorian rule. The galaxy entered a new age where power was no longer concentrated in the hands of a single alliance, but distributed among many species who had learned from humanity's example that strength came not from domination, but from the willingness to fight for freedom. The Valdorian Alliance still existed, but they now shared the galaxy with equals rather than subjects. And at the center of this new order stood humanity, the species that had proven that sometimes the best way to achieve peace was to be too dangerous for anyone to attack. The Titans had awakened, and the galaxy would never sleep easily again.
Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the quantum glass viewport of Titan Base Alpha, her weathered face illuminated by Saturn's golden glow. The massive gas giant had served as humanity's shield for centuries, its gravitational field and complex moon system providing perfect cover for Earth's most advanced military installation. Few humans, let alone aliens, knew of its existence. Movement at the heliopause. Admiral, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his monitoring station. Gravitational signatures matched Nexan scout vessels. Chen's expression remained neutral, though her cybernetic eye implant was already processing tactical data. The Nexan Cooperative, like many advanced alien civilizations, had dismissed Earth as another primitive pre-FTL world, useful only for its mineral resources. Their arrogance would be their undoing. How many ships, Lieutenant? 3 scouts, ma'am. Standard triangle formation. They're using basic gravimetric sensors, nothing that could detect our quantum shielding. Chen allowed herself a small smile. For 300 years, humanity had maintained the greatest deception in galactic history. While alien civilizations watched Earth's apparent struggle with basic rocket technology and climate change, mankind had quietly built an invisible empire throughout the solar system. Signal Ghost Fleet Command, Chen ordered. Tell them to maintain distance but shadow the Nexan vessels. I want to know their every move. The Ghost Fleet, humanity's masterpiece of stealth technology. Hundreds of ships equipped with quantum phase drives and neural-linked crews, capable of moving unseen through the heart of alien armadas. They had watched, learned, and prepared while Earth played its role as a backward world. Deep within the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council sparkled with bioluminescent crystals, their light reflecting off the assembled delegates' varied forms. Dr. Maya Patel, Earth's first official ambassador to the Council, stood calmly at the center of the chamber. Her simple black diplomatic uniform seemed plain among the ornate garments of the alien representatives, but its nano-fabric could stop a plasma blast at point-blank range. Esteemed members of the Council, Maya's voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. I come before you today with evidence of illegal activities in sovereign space. High Speaker Zexlar of the Nexan Cooperative raised his crystalline appendages in dismissal. The primitive world of Terra has no sovereign space rights. They have barely achieved chemical propulsion. Maya's dark eyes gleamed with carefully controlled amusement. That's an interesting assumption, High Speaker. Perhaps you'd care to explain these. She activated her quantum projector, and the chamber filled with holographic images of Nexan scout ships approaching Jupiter. Our routine survey mission, Zexlar responded smoothly. We have every right to explore unclaimed systems. Unclaimed. Maya's voice took on an edge. She gestured, and the hologram shifted, showing the scout ships launching probe drones. These probes violated multiple defense perimeters. Your routine survey nearly triggered an interstellar incident. Confused murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Arthaxian delegate, their insectoid features impossible to read, leaned forward. Defense perimeters. Terra has no such technology. Maya's smile could have frozen plasma. Actually, we do. Allow me to demonstrate. She pressed a sequence on her quantum interface, and the hologram expanded to show what happened next. The assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as massive structures emerged from seemingly empty space around Jupiter. Defense platforms larger than cities shimmered into view as quantum shields dropped. Ghost fleet vessels, their hulls black as space itself, cloaked around the Nexan scouts. Impossible. Zexlar's crystalline form vibrated with agitation. Our sensors detected nothing. Your sensors detected exactly what we wanted them to detect, Maya replied. For 3 centuries, humanity has watched how the galaxy treats primitive species. We chose a different path. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates demanded explanations, threatened sanctions, or simply stared in shock. Maya stood unmoved at the center of the storm. This is unprecedented. The Arthaxian delegate's translator struggled to convey their agitation. No species has ever successfully hidden their technological advancement at this scale. Maya's expression hardened. No species has had as much motivation. We've watched you strip mine primitive worlds, exploit pre-FTL civilizations, and hide behind diplomatic niceties while committing technological genocide. She gestured again, and new holograms appeared. Countless surveillance recordings of alien mining operations devastating worlds, of advanced civilizations manipulating developing species for resources. Humanity chose to wait, to watch, and to prepare. The technology you've seen is only the beginning. The ghost fleet that surrounded your scouts. That's our obsolete defense force. The silence that followed was deafening. Maya could almost see the calculations running through the delegates' minds as they reassessed centuries of assumptions about human capability. The Nexan Cooperative, she continued, will immediately cease all operations in Sol system space. You will withdraw your mining installations from the Kuiper Belt. You will provide full documentation of all resources extracted without permission. Or what? Zexlar's voice carried a hint of desperate bravado. Maya's smile returned, cold as the void between stars. Or we demonstrate why we chose the name Ghost Fleet for our obsolete ships. The truly interesting vessels in our arsenal have different designations. High Speaker Zexlar's crystalline form dimmed noticeably. Around the chamber, delegates were already accessing their neural networks, sending urgent messages to their governments. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted dramatically. Earth extends its hand in peaceful cooperation, Maya concluded, but we will no longer play the role of the primitive species to be exploited. The age of deception is over. The age of equality begins now. As the council chamber descended into frantic discussion, Maya allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity's greatest performance was ending, but the real show was just beginning. Deep within the quantum core of Luna Base Prime, Dr. Marcus Jean watched as humanity's greatest technological achievement came fully online. The massive quantum computer complex, hidden beneath the moon's surface for over 2 centuries, hummed with power as it shed its camouflage protocols. Neural network synchronization at 100%, reported Dr. Aisha Khan, her augmented eyes tracking multiple data streams simultaneously. The Gaia system is ready for full activation. Marcus nodded, his own neural implants processing the incoming data. The Gaia system represented humanity's true masterpiece, not just advanced AI, but a quantum-based collective intelligence that had evolved alongside human consciousness for generations. Begin the awakening sequence, he commanded. Across the solar system, hidden installations began to transform. In high orbit around Earth, massive structures shimmered into view as their quantum shields deactivated. The orbital ring network, disguised for centuries as space debris and atmospheric anomalies, revealed its true nature. Each ring housed millions of humans, Their societies protected by technology that most alien species considered theoretical. Incoming transmission from Admiral Chen, Asia announced. Ghost Fleet reports all Nexan vessels have withdrawn beyond the heliopause. The Galactic Council is requesting additional proof of our capabilities. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. They want proof. Let's give them a demonstration they'll never forget. He interfaced directly with the Gaia system, his consciousness expanding through its quantum network. Around him, the control room's holographic displays showed the transformation spreading throughout the solar system. The Mars colonies dropped their desert camouflage, revealing gleaming cities beneath transparent quantum domes. The asteroid belt's seemingly chaotic debris field reorganized itself, showing the true extent of humanity's mining and manufacturing capabilities. Around Jupiter, the defense grid fully activated, its weapon systems more advanced than anything the Galactic Council had encountered. Sir, Ash's voice carried a note of concern. We're detecting multiple incoming vessels at the system's edge. Classification matches Arthaxian research ships. Right on schedule, Marcus replied. They couldn't resist coming to study the primitive humans up close. Gaia, implement Welcome Protocol Alpha. The quantum as response resonated through their neural links. The incoming Arthaxian vessels suddenly found themselves surrounded by structures that seemed to materialize from nothing. Massive research stations and diplomatic facilities that humanity had prepared decades ago. Message from Ambassador Patel, Asia reported. The Galactic Council is in unprecedented continuous session. Several member species are requesting immediate technology exchange negotiations. Marcus's expression hardened. Remind them that any negotiations will be conducted on equal terms. We've watched them long enough to know their usual tactics. Through his neural link, Marcus could feel the Gaia system processing data from across human space. The quantum eye had been humanity's secret guardian, helping orchestrate the centuries-long deception, while advancing human technology far beyond what their would-be exploiters could imagine. Dr. Zhang, one of the junior technicians, called out, "The quantum fold generators are ready for demonstration. Should we proceed with the Jupiter test?" Marcus considered for a moment. The quantum fold drives represented humanity's greatest leap forward. The ability to manipulate space-time itself, making their fastest ships look primitive by comparison. Revealing this technology would change the balance of power forever. Initiate the test, he decided. Let's show them exactly what humanity has achieved while they weren't looking. In the space near Jupiter's largest moon, reality itself seemed to ripple. A small probe vessel, barely larger than a shuttle, activated its quantum fold drive. In an instant, it crossed the distance to Saturn, a journey that took conventional FTL ships hours to complete. Test successful, Asia confirmed. The Arthaxian sensors definitely caught that. Their ships are going into some kind of scientific observation frenzy. Marcus nodded satisfaction. Send the data to Ambassador Patel. Let her show the Council what real technological advancement looks like. The awakening of human civilization was proceeding exactly as planned. Centuries of careful preparation, of watching and learning from the galaxy's self-proclaimed advanced species, had led to this moment. Humanity wasn't just revealing their technology. They were demonstrating their wisdom in having hidden it for so long. Sir, Ash's voice carried a hint of amusement. We're receiving thousands of requests for diplomatic contact. It seems everyone wants to be humanity's friend now. How quickly they changed their tune, Marcus mused. Gaia analyzed their responses. Let's see who's genuine and who's just trying to gain access to our technology. The quantum as response flowed through their neural links, its analysis showing patterns of behavior that stretched back centuries. Humanity had been patient, methodical, and thorough in their preparation. Now it was time to reshape the galaxy, not through force or exploitation, but through the wisdom they had gained from watching others' mistakes. The Nexan delegation's crystalline forms dimmed noticeably as they entered Earth's primary diplomatic facility in orbit above Geneva. Ambassador Maya Patel watched their reaction with carefully concealed satisfaction. The quantum architecture of the station, impossible structures held together by fields their sensors couldn't even detect, was having exactly the intended effect. "Welcome to Harmony Station," Maya gestured toward the vast observation dome, where Earth hung like a jewel against the backdrop of space. "I trust your journey through our defense grid was enlightening." High-speaker Zexalar's crystalline appendages shifted in what Maya's neural implants identified as extreme discomfort. "Ambassador Patel, the Nexen Cooperative wishes to address the misunderstanding regarding our mining operations." Misunderstanding. Maya's tone could have frozen hydrogen. With a thought, she activated the station's holographic systems. The chamber filled with perfect reconstructions of every illegal Nexen mining operation in the solar system over the past century. "Let's be precise, High Speaker. You thought we were blind. We were watching. You thought we were helpless. We were preparing." The Nexen delegation huddled closer together, their crystalline forms resonating with agitation. Through her neural link to the Gaia system, Maya could sense their ships outside the station desperately trying to analyze human technology. "The cooperative is prepared to offer significant compensation," Zexalar began, but Maya raised her hand, cutting him off. "We're not interested in compensation," she stated flatly. "We're interested in transformation. Your species, like many in the Galactic Council, has a long history of exploiting what you consider primitive worlds. That ends today." She gestured, and the holograms shifted to show the true extent of human space. Hidden colonies throughout the asteroid belt, massive manufacturing complexes in the Jovian system, research stations extending into the Kuiper belt, all previously concealed by technology the Nexens couldn't comprehend. "Impossible," one of Zexalar's advisors whispered. "The energy requirements alone are easily met by our Dyson nodes," Maya completed the thought. "Those natural stellar phenomena your surveys detected, they're part of our solar energy collection network. We've been building it for centuries while you dismissed our capabilities." Through her neural link, Maya received a status update from Admiral Chen. The Ghost Fleet had completed its deployment, invisible ships now surrounding every major Nexen installation in the sector. Not as a threat, but as a reminder. "Here is humanity's proposal," Maya continued, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of preparation. "The Nexen Cooperative will join Earth in establishing new protocols for interspecies contact. No more exploitation of developing civilizations, no more unauthorized mining operations, no more technological suppression. You cannot dictate terms to the Cooperative." Zexalar's crystalline form flashed with patterns that Maya's implants translated as outrage. "We are one of the oldest species in the Council." Maya's smile was razor-sharp. "Age doesn't equal wisdom, High Speaker. While you were watching our primitive chemical rockets, we were watching you, learning from your mistakes, developing technologies you considered impossible." She gestured again, and the holograms showed something new. Quantum fold generators being installed throughout human space. The Nexen delegation's agitation reached new heights as they recognized the implications. "This technology," Maya continued, "renders traditional FTL travel obsolete. We're preparing to share it with species that demonstrate genuine commitment to ethical interstellar relations. The question is, High Speaker, will the Nexen Cooperative be among them?" The silence that followed was profound. Maya could almost see the calculations running through the crystalline minds before her. The balance of power wasn't just shifting. It had already shifted. Humanity had emerged not as another primitive species to be exploited, but as a technological and ethical leader. "The Cooperative." Zexalar's voice carried a new tone. Something Maya's implants identified as humility. "Requests time to consider Earth's proposal." "Of course," Maya nodded graciously. "You have 24 hours. The same amount of time your mining operations typically gave primitive species to evacuate their homes before beginning extraction." As the Nexen delegation withdrew, visibly shaken, Maya received another update through her neural link. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy as humanity's ambassadors presented their case to other species. The age of exploitation was ending, not through force, but through the quiet strength of a civilization that had learned to watch and wait. 1 year after humanity's revelation to the galaxy, the Sol system had become the center of a profound transformation. The massive quantum arrays of Harmony Station hummed with activity as representatives from hundreds of species gathered for the signing of the Sol Accords, a new framework for galactic civilization. Admiral Sarah Chen stood beside Dr. Marcus Young and Ambassador Maya Patel, watching the proceedings through both natural and augmented vision. The chamber was filled with species that had once dismissed Earth as primitive. Now they came seeking guidance, partnership, and access to human technology. The Arthaxians have completed their withdrawal from the Proxima system, Maya reported quietly, her neural link to the Gaia system providing real-time updates. That's the last of the major exploitation operations in this sector. Marcus nodded, his own augmented senses monitoring the quantum signatures of the assembled delegates. The Gaia system confirms genuine commitment from 87% of participating species. The others will learn. Sarah completed the thought, her cybernetic eye tracking the movements of those less committed representatives, just as we learned by watching them. The chamber fell silent as High Speaker Zexlar of the Nexan Cooperative approached the central podium. His crystalline form had taken on new patterns, humbler, more contemplative, over the past year. On behalf of the former Galactic Council, Zexlar's translated voice carried clearly, I formally acknowledge humanity's leadership in establishing the Sol Accords. Our past actions, born of arrogance and greed, nearly destroyed countless developing civilizations. Earth showed us a better way. Through their neural links, the three humans shared a moment of silent satisfaction. The Ghost Fleet still patrolled the stars, but increasingly its role was protective rather than surveillant. The Quantum Fold network was expanding, offering faster-than-light travel to species that demonstrated genuine commitment to ethical development. The Gaia system is detecting unusual activity in the Carina sector, Marcus murmured, his consciousness partly merged with the quantum eye. Another civilization trying to hide their development. Maya smiled. Perhaps, but this time, we'll make contact openly. Show them they don't need to hide. The signing ceremony proceeded, each species adding their mark to an agreement that would reshape galactic society. The exploitation of primitive worlds was now banned. Technology sharing would be based on ethical behavior rather than military power. The strong would protect the developing, not prey upon them. Admiral, a young lieutenant approached Sarah. We're receiving signals from beyond the galactic core. It appears there are other civilizations that followed Earth's path, hiding their development while watching the galaxy's mistakes. Sarah's expression softened. Invite them to send representatives. It seems humanity wasn't the only species wise enough to learn through observation. As the ceremony concluded, the three architects of Earth's emergence stood together at the quantum glass viewport. Below them, Earth shimmered with the visible signs of its true technological achievement, orbital rings gleaming in the sunlight, quantum shields rippling like aurora borealis, the constant flow of ships through fold space portals. Was it worth it? Marcus asked quietly. 3 centuries of hiding, watching, preparing. Maya's response was immediate. Look at what we achieved. Not just technological advancement, but wisdom. We learned from their mistakes without having to make them ourselves. And now we can teach others, Sarah added, her cybernetic eye tracking a group of newly arrived representatives from a young civilization at the galaxy's edge. Show them they don't have to choose between advancement and ethics. The Gaia system's presence flowed through their neural links, its quantum consciousness sharing data from across human space. New discoveries, new developments, new connections between species that had once seen each other only as resources to be exploited. The age of deception is over, Maya declared softly. The age of wisdom begins. As if in response, the quantum arrays of Harmony Station pulsed with new energy. Beyond the viewport, Ships from 100 species moved in careful harmony, their crews learning to use human quantum fold technology. The galaxy was changing, not through force or conquest, but through the patient example of a civilization that had chosen to watch, learn, and grow in secret. Humanity had emerged not just as a technological power, but as a guiding light, proof that advancement didn't have to come at the cost of ethics. The deception was over, but its lessons would echo through the stars for generations to come.